Man, you find some good stuff, Mr. Bacon. I think I've liked everything you found so far.
Try not to let you down, man.
It's nice and chill. I like it.
For me, it's one of those things I just try to listen to as much variety as possible. I mean, there is music and there are genres that I don't particularly care for much, but
yeah,
it's like art, man. If you close your mind off to only listening to one style of music, then you're never gonna like expand your horizons.
It's true. You're gonna do a little horizon expanded for me now that you're working for us?
Oh yeah,
there you go.
I think the work that I've been putting in recently has been, I think, some of the better work that I've done as of late. You know, and I'm getting spun up on a lot of different techniques. I'm picking up a lot from the LA team, so I'm excited about it.
Yeah, me too. Doing a little Friday streaming. Just thought it'd be kind of fun at the end of the week every now and then to jump on the live stream. I think ultimately I was thinking, in a couple of weeks, we're going to have a studio full of people here for Linux Fest Northwest, and how cool would it be to just have a few people come hang out, do a little chatting with the community, and I don't know, just seem like a good excuse to hang out with folks for a little bit, do a little community building. Missed you guys. We don't do as many live streams anymore,
Oh, yeah. Let me turn off those notifications.
I'm glad to hear that. I'm glad to hear you feel like you're doing some of your best work. That's nice to hear.
Well, I think I'm right on the cusp of really starting to do a lot better work.
How much do you think it matters that the work is, related to Jupiter Broadcasting and Linux Academy and Linux itself? Like, do you think, push you to do a little better?
Absolutely. 100%.
Yeah. It's hard for the kind of work you do, the creative kind of work. It must be hard to push yourself when you just don't give any craps about the design.
Well, or when you work for a place that you're getting thrown all different kinds of designs all over the place. And I think at the end of the day, it really comes down to, if you're not passionate about it, then you're not going to enjoy it, right? It's just going to be another one of those grind jobs. But for me, the fact that I'm passionate about Linux and, being able to do what I do in a professional setting in an environment that helps to, prop that up and
you ever done remote work
to the community.
You ever done remote work before?
I've done some, freelance remote work.
What's the lady thinking so far about having you around the house all the time?
Not much.
Not bad or good?
No real, one way or the other, I guess, as of yet, but she is a teacher too, and she gets off here in the next month, so
yeah, man,
she'll be here with me during the days, so it'll be interesting. I may drive her crazy at that point.
Yeah. I find the slippery slope with working at home is people expect you to do a lot of stuff that, if you were at an office, would never expect you to do. Like me taking the kids to school this morning, during the workday. I mean, it's nice that I was able to do my meetings and sneak out for a little bit and do that, but it wouldn't happen that would never even be asked of me if I was working from some office in downtown Seattle.
Yeah, absolutely. But, that's I guess there's some benefit there. But for me, and I've been asked by friends and family and stuff, has it been hard, like, getting motivated in the morning and getting up to walk to the next room and do work? And my response has been not at all. Like, for me, especially falling into something that I'm passionate about doing, I enjoy getting up every morning to go do this, to figure out a different, solution to another problem, to make something new, to be creative. So for me, it's been great. The hardest problem has been turning it off.
Yeah, that is the hardest problem. Absolutely. Yep. I had a bit of crisis when we initially sold the business. A month or two into it, I thought, well, what if I lose the motivation to do the shows? Because they take just an incredible amount of work and energy and effort goes into the production, as you've now seen a bit of insight into, right? And and I was legitimately worried that I would not be able to find the motivation to push myself that hard on a daily basis if it wasn't something that I owned. You know what I mean? But I have not found that to be the case. In fact, I still struggle to turn it off myself because I think in part the passion for me has never been the business. It was never the, billing sponsors. It was always creating content and connecting with the community. That was always why I did what I did. And so that hasn't gone away. And so the motivation's still there, which I think is, thank God, because I was worried about that for a little bit.
Well, I mean, not many people can find that, I mean, I remember whenever you first stepped out on your own, right? And everything went,
indie for the first time.
Advertising, Amazon. You must have been getting, at least there for a while, getting some killer checks from Amazon, because I know I was like ordering everything through my entire household orders were going through the affiliate link.
Good man. Until they shut me down. Oh, that was a hard lesson. Shit happens though. Well, good. I'm glad you're finding the motivation. Yeah, it is hard to turn it off sometimes. The lady will keep you in line. That helps. She'll yell at you eventually.
Oh yeah, I'm sure that's bound to happen sooner rather than later.
Yeah.
Especially like, I need to upgrade my chair because I've been rolling on this like hideous old chair that I got from my old boss. So I was looking around at chairs, and she's like, "Oh, here's some." She's sending me all these links. She's window shopping through the internet for me, and then like I find one that's like $300, and of course, anyone that sits in a chair for a long amount of time knows that there are chairs out there that are ridiculously expensive.
Yeah, you
some
can spend
of the
a lot of
Miller
money.
chairs are incredibly crazy money.
Yep.
So I found one that's like $300. The look that she gave me, and I'm like, babe, it's
$300 is a good deal.
Yeah, it's a pretty good, and be prepared because I'm about to buy a motorized desk too. So
hell yeah, man.
That's coming.
Hell
I don't want to, sit around in a chair all day. And that's one thing that I found too, working at home, compared to working like at the college. I don't move around as much.
Right.
So I get up and I walk the dogs and
Right.
do that a couple of times a day and everything. But I'm not like climbing flights of stairs and walking across campus and that sort of thing as much either. So I think it's more important, the fact that I am like so glued to my screen to try to make an honest effort to not sit on my ass all day.
Yeah, I have been actually just following the exercise advice. Like when it tells me to stand up on the watch, I just stand up because otherwise I would just sit for 3 hours straight. I can sit for 3-4 hours without getting up. So I try to get up every hour, go get some water, have a scratch, make sure I'm getting the blood flowing, get the circulation going. But yeah, I don't know. It's nice to have that, but there are the downsides too. But everybody knows that stuff. Everybody knows about that, right? Right?
Yeah, right.
We might be having, I don't want to say who, because nothing's final yet, but we may have a new team member joining, another person from the audience joining the Jupiter Broadcasting crew soon.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. And I'm hoping that he can come here to the studio instead of me go to Texas, because in this particular case, it would be really good for him to have a good familiarity with how we record and stuff. So we'll see.
Yeah, well, especially to see the pipeline and the way all that works for sure.
The pipeline is, I think, very good to have a picture of.
I think one of the things I'm most curious about is what was his response to barbecue?
Oh yeah, I forgot to ask him that question actually. I got all we had the HR directors there, so I got to behave myself. I did throw him a few curveballs though. Wes actually threw him the best curveball of the interview.
Oh yeah?
Yeah. I can't quite remember what Wes said, but it was a good one. Stumped him. He had an answer for everything. And then Wes comes in. you can tell Wes has done a few interviews in his day. Like the problem Wes faces is if you're good at that, then you always get enlisted because there's only so many people that are really good at doing interviews. And I know because I was one of those guys. And so, Wes is one of those guys because he was really good at it. So I was thinking while we were doing the interview, I'm like, I bet Wes used to have to do this for the place he worked at all the time because he's good at this. He's got hidden talents, that Wes Payne.
Oh, that Wes Payne. Yeah. He's so good. And I told him the other day, I was like, man, every time I listen to him speak, it's like I've flipped over and I've tuned into NPR, which I'm a fan of. So for me, it's like just like on point. It's almost like on this week's Tech Snap. They'll go into a subject and then he'll back it up and like reset it to where my mind actually is. I'm like, well, how does this work? This, these ZFS pools or whatever the topic is.
Hell yeah.
He'll back it back up and like slow it down and give me that chunk of information that I was literally like about to Google myself, so.
Yeah, you can tell they're being very thoughtful about the content, which I really appreciate. Well, so why don't we do a little weekly recap here in the show? I thought maybe we go through, I have picked 5 moments in total from the week's shows that I thought you and I could play and listen to and then maybe make some commentary on and riff on a little bit.
All right.
And so we'll do a little week in review, a little Jupiter Broadcasting week in review, and we'll kick things off with the only Linux Action News covering the big story of really the last couple of weeks, and that is Chef going 100% open source. At least that seems to be the headline.
That is the headline. And it is true that now Chef, instead of being open core and having a bunch of proprietary add-ons, everything that they do will be Apache 2 licensed. So it's all going completely 100% open source. However, the binaries are going to be paid for only. So this is very much the Red Hat model.
Yeah, so to clarify that, you can get the binaries for free, I believe, but you cannot use them for commercial use without paying. But like in the case of RHEL, the source code is available, so you could grab the source code, build it yourself, but then in that case, you can't call it Chef. You have to call it something else, like Joe's Orchestration. What struck me about this story was you've got all these large commercial now open source projects that were free software that found that they were successful in a certain market, decided that they could excel in a certain area, and a lot of them went with this open core approach, and then they would build additional value add on top of that, often very appealing enterprise value add, and then try to charge for that. The issue is proprietary vendors or service vendors is not even that's not the right, that's the old terminology. Really, it's now large service providers like Amazon and others can come along and replicate that functionality and replicate that enterprise value add in their own setup. Like in the case of AWS, they can add their own special integrations, their own special sauce that makes it more appealing and integrate better with the AWS infrastructure. And so the projects are trying to respond to this. And Chef sort of just went the other direction. Like they went all open. They're just going sort of the RHEL model where they're all in. And I'm wondering why more don't go this route, Cheese? Because it seems like if people were going to pay for it, then they'd pay for it. And if they were never going to pay for it, then no matter what Chef does, people would never have paid for it. So it makes a ton of sense to me.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a good leap for them to do. I mean, it's certainly worked with Red Hat, and it's always nice to see them open that up. Is there like a level of vulnerability? Yeah. Are you expecting your license to kind of cover your ass on that? Yeah. So hopefully they don't get stomped on. But that's also kind of open source, right? Like these companies, while it is shitty what they do in a lot of respects, take these projects and then develop off of that, riff off of that, and build this huge ecosystem. But that's what open source is about. So, I mean, I think that we also have to accept that, you don't want anyone's hard work to get squandered and someone to take advantage of it. But at the end of the day, we have to realize that we are in an open source ecosystem, and, you do put yourself out there.
They're being brave. I think that's a good way to put it. Yeah. And I think it's a good long-term strategy. It's going to make them kind of like the de facto standard in this area. All right, moving on. Number 2. This is the longest clip we have in the Friday wrap-up, and it is from our own Wes Payne in the chat room right now. He talked about this crazy cool setup that he has in Coda Radio episode 352. I highly recommend you check out the entire episode because he goes into a lot more detail. But this is, in short, Wes's live out of RAM setup. He's running an entire 1904 operating system out of RAM.
I know you've been up to all kinds of things over there on that ThinkPad of yours, and you said something to me earlier that I thought would be a great possibility for the audience to like set up a test environment to operate out of a while where they really wanted just extreme performance.
Yeah, okay. Well, so TempFS. /temp on your system. You can sort of just like use RAM as a file system and store stuff there.
Yeah, it's like a small space that sort of you reboot and it's gone.
Yeah.
Like it clears out.
So it's like that. But instead, use this technology that the Linux kernel has for emulating persistent memory. And persistent memory is exactly what it sounds like, right? It's a special type of new memory that maybe this week we saw some things coming out of Intel's Optane stuff that possibly you could really buy. So far,
Intel's going to make a hardware version of persistent RAM, essentially?
Yeah,
RAM that doesn't clear?
Yeah, and it's really just, it's on that fuzzy boundary, right, between like RAM and these like crazy NVMe drives and that sort of thing.
Okay.
And so it's just like this really fast access RAM, but that can be persistent with some new technologies they've been developing. Now, partly it's just interesting, and then they were incentivized to do this. They've added stuff to the Linux kernel so that you can emulate this. So application developers could start using the same APIs that would be used down the road. Well, there's a lot of people contributing.
Interesting. And so this emulates this persistent RAM, even if you reboot the system?
So yeah, if you shut down the system, if your RAM gets cleared, if you don't really have persistent RAM, then, there's no magic here. But basically you add a little parameter to your kernel command line in grub, or you can use kexec. If you're going that route.
Is that the route you went?
Well, it's just nice, yeah. I will talk more about that. We'll talk more about
Wes loves kexec.
I really do. So you're in your grub menu. You just add a little parameter that's like memmap equals, and then you tell it like how many gigabytes you want to allocate from your RAM, and then at what offset address. And there's some stuff, I can find some links for the show notes where there's some commands you can run and look at your dmessage output to determine memory regions that are safe to be just like allocated this way.
Do you know what makes them safe by chance?
I think they're just not already reserved by the kernel for other
Nothing else has claimed it.
Yeah, exactly. So after the kernel's, or as the kernel is setting up using different parts of memory, this stuff is just sitting there and hasn't been allocated to any application or cache or whatever.
So it's allocating RAM to you much like it would allocate RAM to an application.
Isn't this crazy? This is Wes Payne here. Mr. Wes Payne running out of RAM. A whole editing environment. He's running out of this thing. So we cover the entire thing in Coda Radio. You can check it out at Coda Radio or coder.show. I was going to say codaradio.com. It's not that. It's Coda Radio. It's coder.show/352.
Yeah, that was a really good episode too. Especially the whenever you got on the topic about just burnout and
feedback,
reception and feedback.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's so awesome. I bet that machine is so quick.
What was fun about doing that episode with Wes was we had sat down to do a 3B episode between Mike, Wes, and I. I was sitting in the guest seat. So Wes is sitting in the host one seat with the board and all the sound and all that kind of stuff. Usually the spot that I sit in for everything.
Mission control.
Yeah, but this time I decided I'm going to sit in the guest spot. That way I kind of take on more of like a background role. It's like 5 minutes after the start, and we're kind of waiting for Mike, and he has an emergency that comes up, and we couldn't do the show with him. He had to go take care of this emergency. And so the doc, however, in this particular case, was very much so geared around a Mike episode. And we looked at this doc and we went, we can't do this. Like, we got to do a show, but we can't do this. So we basically just were like, you got anything you want to talk about? And we went and we both opened up a couple of tabs. And then we started the show, and we did the show just off the top of our heads, just going off of a couple of tabs. And then Wes listened back later on and went and got all the stuff for the show notes, all the links for the show notes.
Yeah, it was very much a just flip it and move on. The show has to go on,
man.
And
it was
being
fun.
that I'm, new to JB, and I've seen, some of the onion layers peeled back and see how things work. I don't think people realize or appreciate, what it takes to get that done. There are quite a few docs, and everything is meticulously gone through. So
yeah. And you haven't even had a chance to meet Patty yet. I don't think he's really cropped up while you're online, and he does. He's doing a lot of our news research in conjunction with Joe for LAN, and then some of the extra stuff I use for LUP. But so he goes in. He does like a lot of like super deep dive stuff. So that way we try to get as accurate as possible.
Well, I'll see him dump a bunch of links in, and I'll just go through, and I'm like, oh, this sounds cool. Yeah, cool.
Yeah.
I'm getting my own like weekly dose before LAN. So
I know, right?
Awesome.
I know it is like a pretty good feed of news in there. Yeah. So speaking of feedback, that we also did talk about feedback in Coda Radio 352, and that really seems like it resonated with some folks. I've heard a few people that have been there or are going in through what we talked about in that episode. So I don't know. I don't know really even how it came up. Maybe because of the recent art changes. I don't know. Oh no, it was because Clem at Mint is burning out, and they're burning out because people are really upset about website changes and logo changes, and so the development team is having a tough time getting Mint out the door because of bad feedback and getting to them.
I mean, how do you expect it to feel for those guys? Whenever they're out there busting their hump, doing something, mind you, they're giving away for free, and then they're just getting brow bashed on it, about a color choice or a logo change or whatever it is. I don't think we would have a network if there wasn't some controversy and some things to talk about in the open source community from time to time, right? But
we could do with a little less, though. I mean, we can make by.
But we don't make it like a habit to just bash someone repeatedly. No,
never.
Words may be said, go on, move through that.
Really, the only people that ever get called out by name are like quote unquote journalists or bloggers in the open source. Like we never go after like developers or
projects.
Never really. We might have a critical review, but even then, we don't go after them like. I think we don't attack. We just give our opinion.
Right, and that's exactly what I was going to say. I think it just boils down to you're still human and you have an opinion. Like you guys love KDE. I'm not a fan. I just am not. So, but that doesn't mean I don't appreciate the hard work that they put into to their project.
Yeah.
And lots of people love it. So
yeah,
more power to them.
Yeah.
Let's not beat them up if they decide they want to change the icon for something.
It's weird. It's weird, huh?
It is.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't know. Feedback, because part of it's really is how you respond to it too. How do you deal with it? How do you internalize it? How do you process it? That's on you, right? They can say the things, but it's really kind of on you how you take it in. So
yeah, and I think it comes back to kind of a customer service level too.
I could see that.
If you get bad feedback just from that one person, if you have a Yelp score, right, for your restaurant or whatever, and you get that one person that complains, you're going to do everything you can do to make sure that person is satisfied, that they're taken care of, that hopefully they go back and edit their review and change their review or whatever.
There was one complaint that came into Linux Academy yesterday, a tweet. You saw it. And the one that you predicted a shitstorm would follow from.
Oh, yeah.
And that made it all the way up to the very top of the chain. That one tweet. One person's opinion, made it all the way up. And, you want a company to be responsive and reading like that. But it's... can you hear that plane in the background? Did you hear that?
Yeah, I heard
that. Was like a
it.
bomb. That was like a World War II bomber, dude.
Wow.
There's an airport here, and the people that are really enthusiasts...
like air shows and stuff.
Yeah, Paul Allen's one of them. He has a jet parked here, a fighter jet, a legit I don't know what I'm talking about, but like an F-16 or whatever it is, fighter jet.
Does he fly it?
Yeah, he loves it. He gets up, he goes up, and well, he did. not anymore. He'd go up there and he would fly around like crazy, and it would terrorize the whole neighborhood. Actually, that's why everybody knows, because Paul Allen is very loud.
Oh, that's Allen up there.
Yeah,
being a jerk.
yeah. Basically, it was. Yeah, yeah. He had a good time, and I had a client who had a warehouse where Paul Allen rented the far end of the warehouse, where he had like spare parts for the jet stored there. That was completely off limits. We weren't allowed to go over there. And then they had a fence with a black tarp over it. But every now and then when the repair techs would come to get stuff, they'd leave stuff open and you could see what it was. So, yeah. And that was a client that had an office and a warehouse near the airport. Craziest thing ever. Rich people, dude. That same client, one of their VPs, would fly in from a nearby town and then walk from the airport to their office. Fly in. His morning commute was flying.
Wow. Like its own little private Cessna or something?
Little prop plane. Isn't that something? Couldn't even with that. You hear that Disney Plus has been announced? Disney says that Disney Plus will support 4K video and HDR video, and all content on Disney Plus can be downloaded and viewed offline, and that they will have an app for the Roku, for PlayStation, and more. And yes, Apple TV will likely get it. It'll include a lot of their Disney titles, almost all of their Disney catalog, as well as their Marvel stuff and other properties that they own. Disney Plus. Can you take a guess at the price?
I am going to guess $14.99 a month.
$14.99 a month, huh? Wow. What's that? That's about what Netflix is right now, right?
Yeah, that's kind of what I was going for.
$14.99 a month. Chat room, what do you think? Chat room's giving it away. God damn it, chat room. $6.99. $6.99 a month. I actually see XMN in the chat room says it's crazy. I think that's a steal. If you think about it, that's all of the Star Wars properties. Plus, they're going to make new. They're going to make new Star Wars content, right? They're going to make new Marvel content. They're probably going to make a Marvel. They're probably going to make television series and whatnot, just like CBS All Access is doing with Star Trek. That's what Disney will do with their properties, and there will be people that just want that content. Plus, they'll have all of the Star Wars stuff in one spot. You can go watch all of the Star Wars stuff, stream it. Then you got all the Marvel stuff. Plus, and if you got kids or family, or you just like Disney movies yourself, you've got the entire Disney catalog on there for $6.99.
That's pretty great. I mean, well, I wonder how many seats that is, how many devices, because not that I really condone parents putting their kids in front of a tablet all the time or whatever. But if you're on a long road trip or something, right? And the
download thing is nice, like a flight.
Yeah.
Yeah, that is nice.
And then I wonder, like, can it support, like, do you have to pay like $6.99 for each seat? So if you want to have multiple devices, is that just, one device at a time streaming?
You see that Tesla announced that they're changing the way you can lease Teslas. With the Model 3, if you lease it, you cannot purchase it at the end anymore because they want to take those vehicles and use it for their Tesla Drive hailing service.
Wait, they're what?
Yeah. What is that? Since what
is that like?
I think
that's Johnny Cab.
I think it's like Uber for Tesla, I guess. And the way they talk about it, they make it sound like the Tesla just arrives at your house. Which, come on, that's more than 5 years away. I mean, that's ridiculous. But that's fascinating. Or they could launch their own Uber with human drivers. You could see that too. I don't know. Maybe it's closer than I thought, though, because the U.S. Army right now is demoing the first 10 driverless trucks that it is developing for its convoys, and it plans 60 more trucks over the next year that will be self-driving. That's what they're talking about this week. Self-driving military vehicles. And doesn't it seem like that actually would be where you would deploy this technology first, because it's a more limited set of circumstances that the system has to be able to accommodate for? That's why I also would think you would see it in semi-trucks on the freeway before you see it in regular consumer cars.
Well, who's to say they aren't already and haven't already been using it in military vehicles? We're just not privy to where they've been testing and using it, right?
That's true. They're probably, and also they probably have drones that are self-flying, and so.
Yeah, well, I mean, now there are consumer level drones that you can get like LiDAR and stuff to do. Topographical maps and to punch through brush and stuff like that to discover new archaeological sites
or track people. What?
Or try. Yeah.
What? I don't know where'd that come from. Where'd that come from? That was weird.
I know, you're right.
All right, let's continue up on the Friday wrap-up. Next up in the line is Linux Unplugged on Tuesday, and this is something we've never done ever, and I can't believe it. For as many podcasts that we've done, we've never had a discussion around defining exactly what desktop Linux is. I'm not saying we got it this week, but Wimpy had a pretty interesting definition. Perhaps we could take a moment and define what desktop Linux actually is, because we may be talking about different things and not even realize it here. Mr. Wimpers, would you like to take a crack at your definition of desktop Linux?
Yeah. So, quite often some people will cite like Chrome OS, for example, as desktop Linux because it uses the Linux kernel. And that doesn't fit my definition, and here's why. I think of desktop Linux as a desktop Linux operating system where you are able to download the source code for the current version of the kernel, compile it, install it, and reboot and boot off that kernel that you've just compiled and built. And if you can't do that, then in my mind, it's not desktop Linux.
That is not what I expected you to say at all.
Why is that ability important to you? Is it something you actually use?
Well, not these days, but it's the very... we talk about this general term of Linux, and that's the basis upon which this whole platform, sits on top of. And things like Android and Chromium are the productization of the Linux kernel. And this is great for Linus because all he cares about is the kernel and it becoming more dominant at a more widespread. But from our point of view, it's usually the Linux kernel with embedded versions of user space, and that whole, the thing that we like because of its flexibility and all that we can do with it is being taken away from us. So I think, unless you've got compilers and the tool chain and the ability to compile, build, and then reboot your desktop operating system off the kernel that you've just built, then it's not desktop Linux. It's something else.
I don't know if I completely agree, having thought about it some more. I mean, I accepted the definition for the discussion, and I think it is a possible definition. But I kind of feel like the real definition of desktop Linux is the Linux kernel, if you can build it or not, the Linux kernel, and then a bash userland at the shell with the GNU tools, and then a free open source desktop environment.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
That's a desktop Linux. So I think where it gets a little gray, though, and tell me what you think of this, is let's just say, for the sake of argument, you could grab a Chromebook and, somehow with some set of commands, you could throw GNOME Shell on there. Now you got yourself a box that has a free desktop environment and the Linux kernel, but it doesn't have any of the GNU, Bash, Middleland stuff that at least you have access. It's all, that stuff is all gone. Is that then a Linux desktop, Linux kernel, free desktop environment, but no userland stuff in the middle?
I would say no, because at that point it's not useful for me. Right? I still want...
You need those tools at the command line.
I want the desktop environment. I want the tools that provides, and the GUI interfaces, and the audio players and the whatevers. But I still, for me, the first thing out of every distro, the dock, whatever, that I always pin is the terminal.
Yeah.
Right. And so I want to be able to open up the terminal and bash, just knock something out, And I saw another podcast this week, video podcast this week, where they were talking about that, and it being able to, I don't know. I think being able to boot, having a working desktop environment, but still having those bash commands, that's a Linux desktop.
Yeah, and then you can get into the argument of, well, what makes it free? And then that's where you can get into can you build it? Do you have access to the source code? That kind of stuff.
Right. Well, and it's like just being able to drop to the command line and run a command real quick that will do exactly what you need it to do without having to hunt and peck in the GUI for some obscure toggle switch. Yeah, absolutely.
In a weird way, for a big segment of the laptop buying market, the smartest move Apple made in Mac OS X was giving the access to the terminal. Like, it's Apple, right? They didn't have to put the terminal in there. They could have not put terminal.app in there and been totally happy with it, right? Mac user would have never cared. But when you go to a lot of technology events, and especially even Linux events, it is a predominance of MacBooks. People that have, remote systems they need to SSH into, or people that know the bash shell prompt, a lot of them bought Macs because they could run the apps they needed and have access to a shell. Now Linux is like the next version of that. As apps go online, or as they go subscription-based, or as they go to Electron, or as they get released for Linux, then you have a lot more flexibility to move over to a Linux desktop. So the future, I think, is bright for that category. I want to move on. Let's talk about, how about a little BSD? How about a little BSD history, actually? So in episode 293 of the BSD Now program, Alan and Benedict had Michael Lucas on, who is a author that, I wouldn't even know, maybe dozens? I don't know. I mean, he's written a lot of books.
Right.
And many of them are around BSD. And I believe he was involved with Alan's CFS book, and I've got a couple of books from him, and he just recently wrote a book on jails. And so the boys had him on to talk about that. And in that questioning process, he got into a little bit of the history of jails, and me not being like a BSD enthusiast, I'd never really kind of heard this stuff, so I wanted to share it with you guys.
How much research did you have to do to be able to write a book about jails?
About 6 years worth. Here's the thing. We have jails started out kind of simple and pretty straightforward. Think back to 98, when PHK first put this jail code in. UFS was the file system. FreeBSD had, basic networking like IP forwarding and such, but bridges weren't really a concern then. Virtual networking was not a thing. This was almost pre-full virtualization. I forget what year VMware came out, let alone QEMU and all the others. So we started off with, here's this neat thing. People came along and said, oh, cool, I want to do this. And they were, the features of jails kind of followed a clear pattern where people want to do a thing. The thing can't be done. Here's a workaround for the thing. Oh, the workaround is hideous. Here's an official way to do it. Oh, that official way is awful. Here's the proper way to do it. And sometimes that proper way was replaced a couple times. So I went digging through blog posts and news groups and had to check the date on everything, because the knowledge of how to configure jails really is tribal knowledge. I would find a beautiful looking blog post from 2005 that explained, say, how System 5 IPC is configured. Well, me using docs from 2005 is like someone in the year 2035 trying to use my book to configure a system. That's how far away it is. So it took a lot of careful evaluation, all of the information. And I literally spent years on this.
Isn't that fascinating? Because I think a lot of us would say, well, the BSDs are so well documented. So well documented. They got that handbook, They've got the handbook.
Well, I think he makes a valid point too, because it's been a few years ago where I was looking up chrooting and on Linux and jails on BSD, and there was some documentation, but it was segmented across all of these kind of different channels, right? So you didn't have one cohesive place,
and it can be out of date very quickly. Things change fast.
Absolutely,
yeah. And
so I ended up at that point in time doing chroots instead, and doing that on Linux, and then whatever project I was working on, I just finished up with that project, and hadn't really thought about it in years, and then here comes Docker, the availability to just encapsulate and do this automatically now.
Yeah.
It's
so simple
freaking
now.
nice, dude.
Yeah, that was really the last 10%. They closed the uncanny valley with Docker. I think that's really why.
Absolutely.
You know,
Absolutely.
the facial hair in the chat room is talking about the whole idea of do we need to use the terminal or not, and that going into the user error program. Stand by the facial hair. I want to play a clip from this week's user error, but I first want to mention I'm going to try doing this for the next couple of Fridays, timing working out. Just follow me on Twitter at ChrisLAS, or maybe stop by the chat room. That's irc.geekshed.net # Jupiter Broadcasting. Because over the next couple of weeks, we're going to have people in the studio. We got Mr. Bacon here today, but
What up?
soon it's going to be Linux Fest Northwest. And people...
2 weeks. Right?
Yeah, people like Mr. Alan Jude are going to be just hanging out. Noah will be here hanging out in the studio. And so I'm going to try to get them, to join us. So I just figured for the next couple of Fridays, we're just going to hang out with the community. And we'd love to have you join us. I don't really have a time. This time we did it around... what time is it for you right now, Bacon?
It's 5:20.
Yeah, so that's Central Time, and it's 3. It was 3:20.
We started around 4:30 or so.
Yeah, we started. Yeah,
My time.
so I guess I'm just trying to say, keep an eye out for Fridays. We'd love to have you join us. I don't have a particular date yet or any time. I guess it's just casual. It was totally unplanned. Like literally, I gave Cheese about I don't know a 5-minute heads up.
Yeah. Absolutely.
We just wanted, we just felt like because we don't do a lot of live shows anymore, it'd be kind of cool to just kind of do a few things on the side and hang out with people. Next in the slot would probably be TechSnap or so. It came out and I didn't get a chance to clip it, but I did get a chance to listen, and it was great. So it was kind of like using ZFS in your everyday setup. But what is nice is they address a couple of people's probably immediate concerns right at the top of the show. Then throughout the show, they kind of bust some common myths about using ZFS. It's kind of a throwback to a TechSnap classic. So go check out techsnap.systems. But let's continue on with the user error thread. The facial hair was just talking about user error and how one of his hashtag Ask Air questions made it into the show. Well, I'm about to play a clip that I think is great because it really sums up how I feel. And this was inspired by another hashtag Ask Air questions about VPNs. And in the discussion about VPNs, Joe just kind of like does a sidebar about Cloudflare. And I got to admit, I've felt the same kind of sketchy suspicions.
Don't even get me started on Cloudflare. I don't understand why people seem to trust them so much. First, they came for our websites and said, yeah, put this in front of your website. You'll save a load of money on bandwidth and, the caching and all that. And it's really convenient. And a bunch of people do that. And then they came for DNS, and now they're coming for VPNs as well. It just, the question is, what's their game? It doesn't seem like a viable business model to just offer sort of premium services on top of that to me. It must cost them so much money to give all this stuff away for free. And then you into the Google and Facebook type models. And so there just seems to be something about Cloudflare that I don't trust. And I have no evidence. This is just a gut feeling.
It does seem very odd, doesn't it? That there is no price associated. And it does make you wonder, how are they paying for this? And if it's not straightforward how something is paid for, that is concerning. But as far as regular public perception, I think that the way that it's marketed in that way kind of makes it seem more trustworthy when it's just hey, we're going to make your internet faster and protect you. Then this is how you're going to subvert some stuff.
I think this has changed. If we'd had this conversation, say 5 years ago or before WikiLeaks and Edward Snowden, we would probably have been I think that may be where, Joe, your prejudices or whatever against VPNs and VPN providers comes from, is pre-Snowden, pre the good news of VPNs and how it can protect you.
That whole episode is really good. So go to error.show/63, Linux Without Borders. They have a really good discussion about rivalry in the FOSS world. And some kid-related stuff about coding, and also a pretty massive kind of universal topic that I'm not even gonna spoil. And then there's that whole discussion around VPNs and other stuff. And apparently Joe being very lazy.
On the topic of user error too, the week before last episode is freaking hilarious.
Dude, every episode.
They're so good, man.
So good.
So good.
I wish the guys had time to do more than a couple of a month, but they're out there living life, right? Which helps inform the show. So
yeah, absolutely.
I
Since
can
it
understand.
is, now after 5, I think it's time for me to crack an adult beverage.
Crack it open. You are cleared from base to crack one open, sir.
Oh yeah.
You got any plans for this weekend?
I think, so one problem with working from home is that now the desk that I built like 3 months ago is no longer large enough to hold, the Zoom, the mic.
Oh, sure, yeah.
My work machine. It was just set up as just for a desktop on the side sort of thing. So I'm gonna work on putting a new desk together this weekend, at least get the desktop part done, and then I'm going to order some motorized legs.
Good for you. I really liked my motorized desk there at the Linux Academy office, and the table I have here at the studio is sort of like it's a high desk, and then I've got a high chair, so I can either stand at it or sit at it.
Oh, that's
Move
awesome.
around. Yeah, it is. It's nice. It was really nice. I got the kids, and the RV is in the shop, getting the slide fixed. That way I can host at Linux Fest Northwest. That's the big driver in my life right now.
Yeah, well, it's coming up soon. I think everything should be arriving.
I think the table skirts just showed up.
That should also be the other little things.
Yeah, I went. I just opened up the box real quick before I got on air, but it looks like tablecloths. At first, I thought maybe I got drunk or something and ordered something on Amazon, and I was like, "What the hell did I do?" Seriously,
because those things do happen.
Well, and also it's addressed to me personally. So
yeah.
I'm like, What did I order?
Did I actually get drunk and order capes for everyone? God.
That'd be the best drunk order ever, though.
Yeah. Does this mean that I need to get wizard staffs now, too?
Dude, I wish we had time to get that in turn for Linux Fest Northwest, because that'd be so good.
That would be so awesome.
We're all just showing up in wizard hats with capes and staffs, because we need hats, too.
Yeah, and then we could just like LARP in the parking lot whilst grilling meats, while smoking them meats, man.
Yep, so I got to get the RV fixed up. I got to get that slide going out, because it goes from literally a bus to an apartment. And it is much easier to host 50 people when you can make it an apartment than if it's a bus. And plus, I feel like it underrepresents how awesome LadyJupes is. Like, I show up and she can only half extend. It's like, it's only half as cool as she is. Like, I don't want people to show up and think like, that's not what it is. It's like, it's better than this. And then I'll be that guy who then feels it's necessary to explain to everybody that my slide isn't out. But it would be bigger in here. You just got to visualize it. I'm going to be that guy.
Yeah, you would have to repeat that so many times.
Yeah, I know. I don't want to have to do that.
Is it weird that I actually would like to rap LadyJupes?
I've thought about it a lot. Anthony and I have talked about that.
That'd be pretty awesome, man.
Here's what I was thinking. If we were doing like some big road event, like Jupiter Broadcasting goes to reInvent, or Jupiter Broadcasting, like say like this Red Hat Summit, I don't know, just any event, right, where we were going to kind of cross a large portion of the nation, then it would seem like that would be the time to wrap it. Because whenever I make public where I'm traveling and where I'll be at, I get more offers than I can accept to stay, to go out to dinner. Like, I know we could have meetups across the country. It might be like 1 or 2 or 5 people, but I mean, every town I go to, which is why I know we have a good reach too, by the way, because every town, even podunk towns in Montana, I get emails about, hey, you can park your RV here if you need to hook up to power. If you and your lady need a home-cooked meal, you are welcome to stop at our house and we will make you dinner. There's something about that. Even though I've gotten so many of them, like every single one of them is really touching. It's really kind of touching. So
I think that really speaks to the JB community too, that they are willing to take a stranger they've never met off the road into their home and cook them a meal and
that's the thing
share
about
a couple
podcasting
beers with them or something.
I think people get to know you when you podcast, right? Because you're right in their ear holes.
Oh yeah, for sure.
I got a special guest coming into the studio right now.
I wish that you didn't have. It seems like every time you drive Jupes across the country, there's this, at least these last couple of trips, there's an issue with the slide out.
Oh no, that's how RVs are. Yeah, no, yeah, totally.
It's like the road vibrations just destroy the screws
Yeah.
in the slide out or something, and they.
I have a special guest in studio. Say hi, special
yeah?
guest.
Hello.
Hello, Mr. Dylan.
Hello,
Hey, what
Mr.
up,
Fisher.
dude?
It's almost Mr. Dylan's birthday.
Yeah, 2 days.
2 days.
2 days.
Happy early birthday, dude.
Thanks.
That's Mr. Cheese Bacon right there. We
Yeah,
are just wrapping up our Friday live stream.
Wow. So this is a live stream and I'm on it?
Yep.
Yep.
Wow, that's cool.
What'd you do this week, man?
Went to school.
Yeah.
Yeah. How was school today?
I got all 3s on my behavior chart.
Good job, buddy.
Boom. Way to go, dude.
Yep. We're gonna have a fun weekend, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah,
You
we're
guys
thinking.
got any big plans or?
We're thinking we got some birthday plans. I'm not sure
Nice,
we're gonna.
man.
We're considering kind of revealing them as they unfold. Perhaps.
Does anyone in
And-
the chat remember me from the last?
The last, and also the episode when Matt wore the monkey suit.
Yes.
Yep. Yeah.
I was in a banana suit.
Yeah. And I was in the man in the yellow hat suit.
Yeah,
that was
from
actually
Curious
really
George.
fun. That was great.
Yeah, that was fun. And
Yeah.
I have a picture of that on my iPad, but like it's photoshopped and it looks so weird and crazy.
Yeah.
That's exactly what Photoshop does.
That's
people look weird and crazy.
Yeah, here, you fix your cord. Pull on that. You go ahead and fix it, and I'll mute your mic while you do it. Yeah, so while the RV is in the shop, we are staying here in the studio this week. So, which is, it's all right, but
Wait,
you
you
got...
never told me it was in the shop.
Yeah, I know. I was going to mention that to you, but I didn't get a chance. Yeah, so we're trying to get the slide fixed before Linux Fest.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
And guess what? Bella said she didn't want to go to the pony farm.
What?
Yeah, but she's still going.
That seems like a... So we're thinking this year.
I would totally say yes if I was offered that.
I know, right? But you want to go to Linux Fest, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, so this year Dylan's going to get to go to Linux Fest. And
Awesome.
the girls will wait a little bit until they're a little bit older. And so, unbelievably, my wife has arranged a trip to them to a pony farm, which, I mean...
It works.
That
Yeah.
sounds pretty fun, dude.
Yeah. So that's what the girls will be
Especially
doing.
if they're like the little Shetland ponies, like the little miniature.
But you know what's weird is we're going to be staying, Dylan with us, in the RV in the parking lot at Linux Fest.
I actually stayed one night there
Yeah.
in the parking lot.
Yeah, we've done it before, of course. It's our move.
Yeah.
So yeah,
Cool, man.
yeah.
So no hotels for us.
Nope.
We got
Yay.
an RV.
Yeah, that's how we'll do it.
I'm going to go get a cup of water.
So are they? I mean, do they? This will be my first Linux Fest Northwest. Do they carve out some space like in the parking lot for Jupes and
Yeah, there's an
like
area.
kind of rope off a little area where
No.
cars don't park on top of you or anything? or?
I've kind of taken the ask for forgiveness approach with that one. So I'm
see.
just, and we get in there early before the crowd for setup, anyways.
Gotcha.
So it's pretty easy for me to get a spot and park, and there's areas, and the thing is too is like, LadyJupes is a nice looking RV, so it doesn't look like some bum is like camping out in the parking lot. It's clearly like an RV that costs over $100,000 is parked in our parking lot, right? So it's
Right.
like we attract a different kind of attention that way. And I have had listeners get weird about it though, because then they know where I'm at, and then they
See, that would be creepy, bro.
yeah, that's happened. That happens. That's happened just about every year now. Yeah, that was a thing. That is a thing. Anyways, I think we're just about done here.
Yeah,
I think we're
yeah.
good.
I think it was a good little test
Good little
show.
wrap. Dylan, why don't you get up on mic and say goodbye to people and tell them to come say hi to you at Linux Fest or something like that.
Bye, people. And
Yeah.
also, if you think my dad should bring his vlog back, say it in the chat.
Dylan, jeez.
Just real quick, before the live stream ends.
All right, we're getting out of here. Jeez, dude. Can't believe it. Now I'm getting it from you too.
I totally think you should.
I know you do.
See,
I agree
people,
with you, bro.
People agree with me.
Yeah, that's cheese.
What?
That was me, man. I agree with you, man.
Yeah, but
All right.
I think there's going to be more people.
I'm cutting this thing off.
I like how he just flows right into it. He's just like a natural.
I know, dude. I know.
Born and
It's
raised
because I
around
watch other people do this stuff, so I
That's
know
right.
You get
what
it.
to do.
Yep, you do
That's
get
right,
it.
man. Exactly.
Well, Mr. Cheese, have a good weekend. Thanks for all the work
you
this
too.
week. And shout out to
for
Mr. Payne. Mr. Payne, you have a good weekend too. I see you out there on YouTube. Brent, XMN. Who else is in the chat room? Brent. Did I say Brent already? Yeah.
Yeah,
I don't know.
X-Men.
I think I might have already said Brent.
Hey, give
Noble
me a
Payne,
shout out, Dad.
Shout out to
Ross,
Dill.
Dylan.
All right.
Happy birthday,
Woo.
dude.
Goodbye,
Facial
everybody.
hair.
Thanks, Cheese.
Goodbye,